Hey y'all, it's Diane with Shawcraft One in my old barn door, and I'm back to make some marks on my coffee dyed papers. So these are the papers, some of the papers that I've dyed, and like some of them came out really dark, like this one, and this one got a little crispy, but it's not really all the way ruined, so I keep those so that I can use them in collage. But here's how, you know, a lot of them turned out. And I've got some, these are ones that I didn't do markings on. And then this one got a little crispy, so I'll just use it in collage. But I like how, notice how the edges get real brown because the way I lay them in that pan, some of the edges are exposed and the coffee soaks up into it a little more, and you get that really grungy look to them. So I like having some of the edges do that. So these are some of the ones that are dry, and then these are some of the ones that I've already gone ahead and done the markings on. So I have a pan that will make these lines, and it turns out pretty neat. Then I have one that does the little dots, and I like the way those turn out. And then I have one that does this shape, and I find that if you lay them in there and put a little weight on top of them, they do better, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. I was just going to flip through these and let you see kind of the different markings that you can get just from different doing different techniques with your pans. So those are the ones with markings. So I thought today I could show you a couple of different ways that I do it to get my marks. Okay, so the first one I want to start with is the circle pan. Woo. So I have my coffee dyed paper here in the pan. It's still wet. Okay, so we're going to put that to the side. And I need a paper towel to put my brush on. And then I'm going to bring over a piece of parchment paper. So this parchment paper is about the size of my oven rack. Okay, and so what I've done is I have put one of the pans in the oven and heated it. Okay, so this is one way that you can do it. So I'm going to pull that pan out of the oven and show you what you can do with it. 1 second. Okay, so I have my circle pan. I'm going to turn it over. Okay, and then I'm going to pull a sheet of my coffee dyed paper out of my pan, and I'm going to lay it on top of the bottom of that pan. Now this pan is very hot. I just pulled it out of a 375 oven, and so I'm just going to take my oven mitt and press down. And as you can see, hopefully you can see it in the camera, it's starting to form the circles. And that heat is just grabbing hold of that paper, the wet paper, and it's making the little circle marks on there. And as I'm pressing down, because I have found that a little bit of weight to it helps it to get your marks better. So I'm just pressing into it. And then we'll take it off. And you can see that we have our marks. And then you can just put this piece to the side to let it dry, or you can put it in the oven to let it dry. Okay, so that's one way you can do it. Now, let me find somewhere to put my paper. If you don't have one of these pans, you know, if you just have regular normal pans in your kitchen, you can still make marks on your papers, and I'll show you how. Let me grab it out of the oven. Okay, a lot of people only have a muffin tin. Okay, so if you only have a muffin tin, then I'm going to take a sheet of coffee dyed paper here. I'm going to lay it down here. And then I'm going to put my muffin pan right on top of it and press down. Now, while I'm pressing down on that, I'm going to take another sheet of paper and I'm going to put one on top of my muffin pan. And again, I don't know if you can see it steaming, but the heat from that pan, and I'm just going to press down so we can get our marks. Press down easy or you'll tear it. See, I ripped it. So let's get a different piece. It's trial and error when you do this. Okay. So you see how the heat from that pan is already making marks on our paper. So that just kind of gives you an idea of something that you can do with your muffin pan. And they're not predominant. These are. So if you get it when it's first out of the oven and real hot, but I changed papers because I tore that, but I won't throw this away. I'll use it for collage or, you know, the backs of tags or something, because it'll dry and you'll have those marks in your paper. Okay, so now let's take our muffin pan off of the one on the bottom. Whoops, I'm getting the paper in there with it. I need a different mitt. Okay, so see, you have your circle marks in your paper just from your muffin pan. Okay, so I'm going to set these to the side and let them dry. Now, to me, the better way to do it, I'm going to go ahead and put my pans back in the oven and get them hot again. Hang on. Okay, so while my pans are in the oven, I'm going to go ahead and start separating my papers out of this pan, my wet papers. Okay, and I'm just going to kind of lay them on my parchment paper. Just kind of willy-nilly. I don't want to stack them. So I kind of want to give them some space to, you know, to dry better. So I'm just going to kind of spread these out. Okay. And then you can, you know, you can stack. It's going to take it a little bit to dry, but you can see like this one, it's torn a little, but that's okay. All right, let me, here we go. Okay, so I want to show y'all this. All right, so this is my paper in my pan. So I've pulled this out. See how dark and grungy that pan is? And look what it did to that paper. Yum, that's gonna be yummy coffee dyed paper. So I'm gonna go ahead, put a few of these down, these really dark ones. Yummy, grungy paper. Okay. Okay, now I'm going to go back to some of the lighter paper, because the lighter paper is what I want my marks on. The grungy paper, I want it left just like it is because it's great. So the lighter paper is what I'm going to use to put my marks on. So I'm just going to make like a whole layer of this lighter paper. And see how I'm not laying them all in the same direction to hopefully give them enough, you know, space or air to be able to dry faster. Okay, so now that I have this layer on here, I'm going to lay one sheet right across the middle, and I'll show you why. Okay, so I've grabbed my hot pan out of the oven. I'm just going to lay it right on top. I don't know if you can hear it sizzling or not. Okay, and then I'm going to take some more of my lighter dyed paper and I'm going to put a piece in the pan. Okay, and then ouch, I'm going to lay a few pieces on top of that just to give it a little bit of weight, because that way it'll heat better and it'll give you better marks. So I'm going to put this in the oven. I have it on 375 and I'm just going to put it in there for a few minutes and I'll be right back to show you what it looks like. Okay, while that one's drying, we're going to move on. I'm going to go ahead and get another piece of parchment paper. I'm going to lay a few pieces of paper down. I'm running out of my light paper. That's okay. All right, and then I'm going to grab my other pan out of the oven, put it here. Let me just grab it real quick. Okay, so it's good and hot. I'm just going to lay it down right there. Hear it sizzle. And then we're going to put some more on top of it. And it doesn't have to be complete. Like, I don't always have to have it on the whole page. Okay, but we're going to put a little bit of weight on top of this. And then we're going to put this one in the oven and let it dry. Hang on. Okay, so we have pulled our paper out of the oven. Okay, I'll slide it up a little so you can see a little better. I'm going to move some stuff out of the way here. I have run out of counter space. Okay, so these top pieces, I just want to make sure that they're good and dry. They're almost dry. Okay, but these were just the ones that we put in there to give it a little weight to it. This is the one that we're going for. Okay, so we got our good markings on that one. Okay, and then this pan is still very hot, so I'm just going to move this. And I'm going to pull my sheet off the bottom of it. And look at there. We get some good grungy circles on there. So I'm going to put this back in the oven and make it hot again. And I'll hold this up a little closer. Now, it's not dry all the way, so I'll have to put it back in the oven and let it dry, but we can do that. But the whole point was to get our marks. And if you can see, on these bottom papers, you still have some marks on there. So, I'm going to move these around and just kind of rearrange them. And lay all of these. You know what? Before I do that, we're going to do something else with these. So hang on a second. I'm going to set these to the side. We're going to grab our other one and see what markings we got off of it. Okay. So this is our other one, and we got markings on the top sheet because it had the weight on it, so it took the marks. So that's a good grungy piece. This one you've got a few markings, not a whole lot. This one you've got some markings on. Love the way that one turned out. And then this one we have our markings on. So we have the up and down lines. And then on the bottom underneath this, see if I can pull it up. Let's put that back in the oven and let it get hot again. So see, now you have the markings from the bottom of that pan. And you even have them on this sheet a little. So that's how I use my pans to get my markings. Okay, and then the next way I do markings is with these. I have these plastic doilies, okay? And so I've played around with them to see what way gives me the best markings. And because you can't put these in the oven, so you have to do that part separate. So I'll show you what I do with these. Hang on just one second. Okay, before we do the plastic doilies, I'm going to show you this pan. So I have this pan here, and it's for like a grill, and it makes good markings too. So we're going to put a few sheets on this, and I think we're going to use our notebook papers. So let me grab those. These are those composition notebooks that we coffee dyed all at one time. So let's see if we can get some marks on a few of these, because these are still wet. So I'm going to use these on the bottom because you can't really see the grid lines on this one. So we're just going to separate a few out and lay them in our pan. And that fits perfect. Okay, so I'm just going to stack a few in this pan. Try to separate them so that they will dry better. So I'm just going to stack a few in the pan, and then we're going to put it in the oven and let them dry, and I'll be right back. Okay, so this is the sheet we had one of our pans on with our markings. So what I'm going to do, because these are not all the way dry, so I'm going to just take this whole stack and flip it over on that parchment paper. Okay, and then I'm going to pull off the bottom the ones that are dry. Look at those markings. How cool did that turn out? Okay, so these are not completely dry either. So because they're not completely dry, I'm going to flip this back over. Actually, I'm just going to pull another sheet of parchment. And then we're going to grab both sheets and we're just going to flip it over. Okay? And that way we have these good wet ones back on the top. Okay. So I'm going to take my hot pans again. I'm going to pull some of these off. And I've got my pans back in the oven. So I'm going to bring a couple of them. Actually, I might do both of them and put them on here. Okay, so we've got that one. And this one. Okay, so these are really, really hot. Just pulled from the oven. And then I'm going to take my wet pieces of paper. I'm going to put one down here. I'll put a couple on top of it just to give it some weight. And then we're going to put one here and one here. And then I'm going to put a couple more on top of it to give it some weight as well. Okay. And you're kind of killing two birds with one stone because you're drying your papers at the same time you're getting your markings. All right, now I'm going to throw these on the very top, these that I already have my markings on. And that way they can dry too. So I'm going to put this back in the oven and I'll be right back. Okay, so now we have our one that was the grill pan. These are dry. This one's not dry all the way, but it doesn't matter if it's not dry all the way because the longer it sits, the more it'll dry. This one's still pretty good and wet, so we'll put it back in to dry some more. I just want to get to the very bottom one so we can see what kind of markings we got on it. Those are all still pretty wet. Okay, and that one's pretty wet. So this is the very bottom one, and we didn't get great markings off of it, but I think it's because we didn't have enough weight on it. So that kind of shows you the difference. So you can see a few of the markings in there. Hopefully you can see them on camera, but they're not predominant. So we're going to try this one again, and we're going to put more weight on it. All right, so this one's a good, no, let me get one that's more wet. Because the trick is, if your paper is wetter, you'll get your markings better. Okay, so we're going to put this one here, and this one here, and then we're going to lay all of these back on top, except for the dry one, and then I'm going to get the whole notebook and lay it on top of here, just for the weight of it. Okay, that'll give it some good weight, and hopefully we'll get better markings. We'll see. All right, I'm gonna put this back in the oven. Okay, while those are in the oven drying, I'm gonna show you some other markings that I get off of those plastic doilies. So see, here's a couple of them that I've done. So you see the little doily marks, and they're not, you know, real predominant, but I like the way they turn out. There's that one, and then this one I didn't like the way it did. I had to try a couple of different things. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna try and see what we can come up with. So I'm gonna grab a couple of pieces. This is already coffee dyed paper, okay? I like to do it this way because then you have your coffee dyed background, and then you have your coffee dyeing design. Okay, so let's just take one piece, and we'll start with this little plastic doily. And what I do is I take my bowl of coffee. Now, I was trying to brush it on, and that's when I got this look. Okay, so that's what you get from brushing it on. I'm not a super big fan of that. But if you dip your doily in your bowl of coffee and then sit it on top, you get better, you get a better design. Okay, so we're just gonna, let me just take my little brush out, put it to the side. We're just gonna dip our plastic doily into our coffee. And then we're going to let it drain. And you want to let it drain because you don't want to have you don't want it to be too wet, okay? And then we're going to sit that down on there. We're going to take another piece of coffee dyed paper and lay it on top and press it down. Let me wash my hands real quick first. The reason I needed to do that is because I didn't want to soak my top piece of paper with the coffee that's on my hands. So now I'm just going to lay this on there and press so that I can get my design. Okay, so we have that one. And when it dries, it'll be a little lighter, but I like the way it looks, okay? And then you've got the one you laid on the bottom sheet, and it gets a little more muddy. But that's okay because you still have a pretty design on there. So let's try again. Let's see. Those are a little dark. Let me find some different paper. Okay, so let's try this one, and we're going to try a different stencil. Put that one in the sink. Okay, so I have this stencil. So we're going to dip it in our coffee. And maybe not the whole thing this time. Maybe just a little bit of it. I don't know. Let's go ahead and dip the whole thing. I'm committed. Okay. We're going to shake our coffee off so that it's not, you know, soaking wet. And we're going to lay it down. Grab another piece of paper, lay it down. Let me wash my hands. Or if you have, you know, just an old rag sitting beside you, you can wipe your hands off. Okay, and then we're just going to press down. Let that coffee soak into that paper and do what it's going to do. That one's turning out with a pretty design. Okay, so we have that design. Hopefully y'all can see that. And let's see what we got on the bottom piece. Ooh, very nice. I like that one. So that's another way that you can get some markings. So let me grab that other out of the oven. Okay, so these are dry now. So these are the ones that we did with the muffin tin. And this is our circle one. It's dry. So I'm just going to take one piece of time off the stack and make sure it's dry. That's a good grungy one. Okay, now you can see where even this one has a few of the circle marks, and it's not laid directly on the pan, but those circle marks kind of came through a little, so you get good markings on there. And that one has a few of the circle markings. And then we have this one. It didn't do as good this time, but I don't think I had enough weight on it. I think I needed more weight on it, but you get a few, you know, and you can do a little bit or you can do a whole lot. Okay, here we go. Let me just get my little pot holder here and move the hot pan. Back in the oven to get hot, and look what it did on the bottom. It gave us good markings too. So on that nice grungy piece you get the circle markings. Okay, so this side we had the other pan, so I'm going to go ahead and pull these pieces off. They're not completely dry, so I'm just going to lay them over here to the side, but you can see. Okay, so on this one we got a little bit of markings, not a whole lot. This one got markings. And then this one. Oh, that didn't do real good either, did it? I think I needed more weight on them. Okay, let me move this. Try not to burn myself. Okay, and then we got the markings on the bottom. And it's not a full page, but you get, you know, you get good markings on there. That one's got some of the markings. And then these on the bottom were just there to dry. Okay, so that shows us, okay, see these on the very bottom, they're dry. So we can pull those out from under. They have some really good markings on them too. That one's one of my favorites. Okay, so I'm just going to put back the wet ones, you know, the ones that aren't all the way dry, and we'll let them do a little more drying. Okay, so I'm just going to kind of stack these on here, and we'll put these back in the oven and let them dry, and I'll grab the other pan, the little grill pan, out. I'm going to go ahead and put these that we did our stencils with on top, and that way they can dry too. And this is how I stack them, and I just pick up the whole piece of parchment paper and slide it onto my oven rack and close it. Okay, hang on. Okay, let's see how this one turned out. Now this is the one that I put the whole book on top of just to kind of weight it down. So, you know, of course the whole book isn't going to dry like that. So we're just going to put that to the side. That's still wet. That one's almost dry. Almost dry. Okay. I know what I'm doing wrong, because we didn't get much markings off of that one. I mean, we got some here, but not much. But what I didn't do was I didn't put this in the oven and heat it up first. And my papers may not be good and wet. The wetter your papers are, when you put them on the, you know, whatever pan that you want to make your design with, the wetter your papers are, the more markings you're going to get. So anyways, that kind of gives you an idea of some different things that you can do to make marks on your papers. Your parchment paper that's left over, don't get rid of it, because it makes great journal pages. You know, with all the markings on there, coffee dyed markings, it makes great journal pages. It makes good for collage or making tags and different things like that. So you can use this in your journals too. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any comments or questions, please leave them in the comment box below. Don't forget to like and subscribe for me if you will. And I hope you have a great day. Big hugs.